Good evening and welcome to the January 4th organizational meeting here at the Penfield Town Board. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'd like to say, first of all, Happy New Year's, rather, to you and your families. I am Deputy Supervisor Debbie Drawe. I am filling in for Supervisor Cindy, who's on a leave. Would you please stand and join me in the pledge? And I'm going to have some students from Aquinas lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will our town clerk, Amy Steckhoff, please call the roll?
Cindy is absent. Drawe.
Here.
Kohl.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Ockenden.
Here.
Thank you. Our next order of business is communications and announcements. Board, I will start with our town clerk for any announcements or communications, please.
Okay, actually, Deputy Supervisor Drawe, I'm wondering if you would like to state the terms for the first of the year appointments first.
I will, thank you so. And I will make the following appointments and assignments at this meeting, this organizational meeting. Appointments will continue to serve until a successor is appointed pursuant to Section 5 of New York's Public Officers Law. For a one-year term ending in 12/31/2023, Deputy Town Supervisor Debbie Drawe. For a two-year term ending 12/31/2023, Confidential Administrator Elisa Grosser. Attorneys of the town, McConnell, Considine, Kuhlman, and Morin, with Peter Weischer, Esquire. Town Historian is Kathy Knauer, and I see her in the audience tonight. Thank you for serving. Tax Receiver is Christine Lysick. The following town board committees will be established at this meeting with its chairperson as indicated. For Community Services, Linda Kohl. Law and Finance, Debbie Drawe. Public Safety, Bob Ockenden. And Public Works, Candace Lee. Thank you. The following town board liaisons are effective for 2023. For the ambulance, Bob Ockenden. Board of Assessment Review, Marie Cinty. Community TV, Candace Lee. Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee, Bob Ockenden. The Fire Districts, Bob Ockenden. The Friends of Dayton Corners Schoolhouse, Linda Kohl. Health and Wellness Committee, Marie Cinty. Historic Preservation Board, Linda Kohl. We have two homeowners associations here in Penfield, the Allens Creek homeowners and the East Penfield homeowners, and with representatives of the town board for both. The Justice Courts, Candace Lee. The Library Board, Linda Kohl. The Local History Room Advisory Board, Linda Kohl. The Monroe County Sheriff, Marie Cinty. New York State Police, Marie Cinty. Park and Recreations Advisory Committee will be Candace Lee. Penfield Business Chamber, Marie Cinty. Penfield Little League, Candace Lee. Penfield Symphony Orchestra, Linda Kohl. Penfield Youth Council, Bob Ockenden. Planning Board, Marie Cinty. School Districts, Kohl and Cinty. Senior Citizens is in the entire town board. Transportation Committee is myself. Veterans Organization is Bob Ockenden, and Watershed Management is myself. Zoning Board is Marie Cinty. And again, I probably should have prefaced it. These are housekeeping that we do every year starting in January at our organizational meeting. And now, will the clerk please read her announcements?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Drawe. As provided for in New York State Town Law, I would like to make the following appointment and assignment today, and that is for a one-year term. It is for my Deputy Town Clerk, and it is Susan M. Scheid. And if I continue, I'm going to continue on with, and kick off the communications and announcements, the rest of them. So with the dog license renewal late fee of $5 per month gone into effect this year, quite a few people have called in regard to having difficulty scheduling their dog's updated rabies vaccination with their veterinarians. Well, I have some good news. There are other options for you that may be more convenient and less expensive so that you can avoid late fees. There are several locations nearby that hold rabies clinics on the weekend, and they are held in Country Max on Sundays at 897 Turk Hill Road in Fairport, and Pet Supplies Plus located at 1900 Empire Boulevard in Webster, and then also the Pet Supplies Plus at 585 Mosley Road in Barrington also holds a community rabies clinic on some Saturdays. To find out the different locations and more information, please call me at 340-8629, or you can email me at clerk@penfield.org. You do not need an appointment for these clinics. It's first come, first serve. My last announcement today is for the 2023 Town and County Tax Collection that has begun, and if you do not receive your bill by January 9th, please contact the tax office at 340-8625 or visit the Monroe County website at monroecounty.gov, and they will get you will be able to get a printed copy. Full payment is due without penalty on or before February 10th. For payments made after February 10th, interest accrues at a rate of 1.5% per month. And for those wishing to make installment payments, the first installment is due February 10th, second one is due February 28th, the third installment is due March 31st, and the fourth installment is due April 30th. All payments should be made payable to Christina H. Lysick, receiver of taxes. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Councilman Ockenden.
Thank you. I do have a few announcements tonight, most of them relating to winter. First off, the Town of Penfield Department of Public Works is accepting non-artificial trees for recycling at our highway garage located at 1607 Jackson Road. If you look for the sign labeled Christmas trees, as you approach, all trees will be ground up and made part of a mulch pile available on the west side of the Town Hall complex. You can drop off trees at any time. Again, it's just to the right of the DPW facility gates. There's additional details available at our website, penfield.org/town services. Thank you for recycling. Secondly, a reminder about keeping your fire hydrants clean. It's essential to keep snow off our fire hydrants to ensure firefighters have access to them in event of an emergency. We're asking our residents to try and keep snow cleared away from their neighborhood's fire hydrants, preferably about 3 feet away on all sides. And if they could check them periodically throughout the winter, we like to refer to as adopting a hydrant. Please be sure to shovel or clear away snow that is accumulated around the hydrant, and try not to use a snow blower anywhere near the hydrant itself. Thank you for your help in keeping our community safe. I'm not going to jinx it, but we haven't had to do a lot of that yet.
Yeah, no.
And then finally, just a reminder that our parking restrictions are currently in effect. Winter parking rules started on November 15th and run till April 1st. And this is from 2 in the morning till 7 in the morning. During that time, there's no on-street parking. This will allow our snow plows better access to the roads in order for them to clean them appropriately. Again, you can visit our website for additional details on that, penfield.org/snow. Thank you. That's it.
That's it. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Kohl.
I have 2 announcements. One is the Penfield Ecumenical Food Shelf is seeking a new Adopt-A-Shelf participants. The commitment involves providing approximately 20 items per month, such as mustard, jelly, and hamburger helper, for a period of 3 to 4 months a year. If you or anyone you know is interested in helping, please email the penfieldfoodshelf@gmail.com or call 585-234-0799. Learn more about the food shelf at www.penfieldecumenicalfoodshelf.com. And my other announcement is, if you're looking for something fun to do in the winter and spring, consider signing up for a class or a program at the Penfield Recreation. They offer a wide variety of activities for people of all ages, including sports, fitness, arts and crafts, dance, and more. Classes and programs are a great way to stay active, meet new people, and learn new skills. Registration is currently underway, so be sure to sign up and reserve your spot. Learn more about registration online at www.penfieldrec.org. And you should have all received this in the mail, the hard copy, which you can also get over at the Recreation Department. But go online, and it's a simple way to register for a lot of the great programs coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Lee.
Good evening. The Town of Penfield is seeking dedicated and passionate individuals to serve as volunteers on several boards and committees. These are, most of these are paid volunteer positions on the various committees. Those that are interested in serving can simply submit their resume to supervisor@penfield.org, and then applications will be reviewed and appointments considered. Next, I have the Penfield Public Library event. The Rochester chapter of the Hearing Loss Association of America is hosting an event on Saturday, January 7th from 10:30 a.m. to noon, again at the public library. This event will provide information and educational resources on hearing loss, assistive devices, hearing aids, and also feature an express hearing check for attendees to check their hearing. Information from the HLAA Rochester, again, the Hearing Loss Association of America, will be provided there. The event is free, but we are asking for attendees to register, and they can do so at the library website or calling the library with the phone number available there. Finally, the Penfield Art Association is presenting an exhibit featuring one of our own at the Penfield Town Hall. I am going to do my best to pronounce her name, but again, the artist is Victoria Brzustowicz. I apologize. I can spell your name, Brzustowicz. She's a native here and a graduate of Wells College and has been painting the alla prima style since 2015. Her work explores the line between abstraction and representation, and she is the co-founder and chair of the Greater Rochester Plein Air Painters. This exhibit, again, is brought to you by the Penfield Art Association at the Town of Penfield, and we are so grateful to have her art featured here, and we thank her for her work.
Thank you. And I have one announcement here. We do something here in Penfield which I really think is special. We have a staff spotlight, and this month the spotlight was on Jay Robinson, and he's a member of the Penfield Facilities Department. Jay's been an employee here. There's a picture of him on the screen. Since 2019, he helps maintain the town buildings and properties. We're also preparing facilities for special events and recreation programs. Whether it's something as small as changing a light bulb or moving chairs, he's always willing to go the extra mile. Recently, Jay played a key role in the repair of the town-owned streetlights. He also completed operator training for the town's door access and energy management systems, allowing him to handle ongoing maintenance of both systems. Though his work may often be behind the scenes, town staff members and residents benefit from his contributions. So we thank you, Jay, and along with the rest of the staff here in the town, but it's nice to highlight someone for the work they're doing. So thank you on that. Our next order of business is public participation, and this is your first of two opportunities for you to participate, and there are three ways. Here in the audience, in person, you can participate. You can also call in at 340-8771, or you could email us at pctv.org. I don't know if anybody in the audience has signed up to speak.
Yes, I have Kathy Knauer.
Great, thank you. Kathy, if you want to come forward, have a seat in front of the microphone, and if you just like to state your address, name and address.
I'm Kathy Knauer, 1710 Sweets Corners Road. And as you mentioned earlier, I'm also the town historian.
Thank you.
And as part of my duties as defined by New York State as the town historian, part of it is seeing to historic preservation. And I just want to be here to remind town board members, as you're discussing demolition of the historic building at the Alpheus Clark site, that you are setting an example for individual owners of historic properties in the care that you take of the buildings that are under the care and ownership of the town. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Well noted. Is there anyone else signed up to speak? You come forward, that's fine. You're-
It's really the same thing.
We can't hear you unless you're on the microphone, please.
Need your name and address.
Diane Shutter, 45 Seton Court.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be a Monday morning quarterback, but I'm just curious, what is the plan for the house? Is it completely too late to save the barn? What's the plan for the house?
So I think you'll
Clark
hear.
House and
You'll hear.
what she's right?
li-
Isn't that what you're?
No, it's not the Clark House, it's a barn. It's a barn,
Both.
the barn.
The barn and the house.
What we were discussing tonight is just the barn, has nothing to do with the Clark House property. But I think if you wait a little bit, you will see that we are going to wait and discuss that at another time.
Okay.
So I think your points are well noted, but I think you'll hear more. We're going to discuss this at a later date, and you'll hear that,
Okay.
if that's
But you know,
okay.
if you're interested in the house, you can go on the website. There's a lot of information about what we've done so far, getting these engineers to come in and what it's going to cost to preserve. There's 3 sections of the Clark House. There's a really historic, there's a sort of historic, and then there's what was the golf course historic, right? So anyway, there's conversations there about what it would take, and that's continuing on. We got another report coming soon we have to look at. So nothing is happening as far as
The Clark.
there's no plan right now to do anything with the Clark House except find out what it takes to preserve it in some fashion. The barn, as the acting supervisor Drawe says, is another matter that's separate. It's a separate entity to the Clark House.
Well, I understand they're 2 separate properties. I guess my thing is, and again, I'm not trying to be a Monday morning quarterback. I just, like I am like, a lot of people just, devastated and just in disbelief that we would just let this thing sit there for years, rotting away. So, I'm coming here now going, okay, so what is we've owned this thing for years now. So, what are we doing with it? And is the house just being left to follow suit now? And
No.
that's why I'm asking about it now, not when it's about to collapse.
I understood. No, I can assure you that there are 2 different prop pieces.
No, I
of
understand
the-
that. I know it's a house and a barn, like, I
Right.
see that. I live
And
here and I drove by
I think
9 million
if you'll
times.
hear, if you wait, we are going
Okay.
to pull this, we are going to pull that
If I can just
today.
add, I understand that it might sound a little odd that we're saying that we'll be discussing it as another date because the town did issue a press release saying that this is going to be, that the potential demolition of a building is going to be considered by the town board. And so we've invited public participation. And so I appreciate you at least sharing your thoughts and then feedback and then asking questions of the town board. So I understand that it seems kind of odd that we're saying, hold your thoughts, we'll get to it. But we do want to at least let, and Kathy spoke also, but for everybody in the audience as well as home, because of the amount of feedback that we've received after the publication of that release, the board would like an opportunity to carefully weigh those. And the second point that I wanted to at least distinguish was a lot of us are saying historical building, historical designations, and we are analyzing those as 2 separate types of ownership by the town. There's historical, that's an actual designation by the town, and then we follow certain criteria. And then, of course, there's, another historical meeting where it's just been around for 200 years, so we definitely appreciate that there is public sentiment and affection for that barn, and so that's kind of why we want to just carefully consider. We did at least put that public release out because of the potential safety issue, but we very much appreciate, again, hearing Kathy's comment and yours, and then I think, you may want to participate, at least when we get to that portion in tonight's meeting. So I don't want it to seem like we're dismissing your participation tonight at all. That's not her intent at all.
No, and there, yes. Thank you, Councilwoman
And
Lee.
there will be a second public participation after the resolutions are read, and so you may have some
Okay.
questions after that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess my other point is, I'm not here just to, I'm not the type to just complain.
Right.
Like, if there's something that can be done or whatever.
Right.
I would like to, help and do what, if we have to find resources or whatever to move this forward and,
Well, thank you for your-
maintain the area,
Thank-
so.
Thank you for your input. Thank you thank you so. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
I see a gentleman taking out a pen. I don't know if he's looking to enter his
Would you
name,
like-
but
If you want to come sit down at the
Just sit
at the,
there, and you can
thank
tell us
you.
your name and address.
Sorry, I'm late. I didn't know the meeting was starting early.
Yep, they start at 6:30 now.
Okay, I missed that.
If you'd like to just give us your name and your address?
Robert Peterson, 1931 Clark Road. And I didn't really prepare, and as you can tell, I'm late.
Actually, right on time.
A couple of comments and questions about the Clark House. I know you have a busy agenda, so we'll try to keep it brief. I've been a resident at Clark Road now for 33 years. Before that, I was 23 years living in Village Green, and before that, a couple of years in the apartments in Braidwolf Drive. So as you can tell, I kind of like living in Penfield. And I certainly enjoy living adjacent to Shadow Pines. In fact, my lot has a property line that coincides with Shadow Pines on two sides. And I'm here to express a little concern about what seems to be happening to the Clark House and its barn. I do realize that the barn has to come down. But on the other hand, I see the same thing heading for the same outcome heading for the Clark House because of a lack of maintenance or stewardship on the part of the town. That property's been under town ownership now for going on 4 years. Very little money, I think, has been spent on its upkeep. I'm concerned that at some point in the near future, a couple of teenagers get in there and do what teenagers like to do, and you guys will quickly declare it a safety hazard, put a fence around it, like the barn, and then what next? Sell it, demolish it? I'm concerned we're losing a piece of our heritage and our history, and I think the town ought to consider investing in the barn, not the barn, the Clark House, to save it, to make use of it, to consider it an asset and not a problem. I think it's worth saving. I think it's a beautiful part of our history. And as a neighbor, I feel a loss. I sense a loss of, first of all, one of the best public golf courses in the area.
Surely.
And then we lost the Clark House, which had been a really nice restaurant for some number of years going back. Then we lost all our pine trees. Now we lost the barn. I'm afraid we're going to lose the Clark House. And I'm speaking not just as a neighbor and a resident next to the Clark House, but I think it's a loss for everybody in Penfield that either drives by, walks by, or visits Shadow Pines. I think you really ought to do something about saving the Clark House, and I'm wondering if it's on your agenda.
So I can tell you that it's not on our agenda tonight to discuss, but the one thing we have talked about as a board, and I believe before you came in here, the barn was completely separate discussion from the Clark House. It has always been this board's intention to do something to preserve parts of the Clark House. And I think that's, and then going forward, you will see that we will be discussing that at a future meeting. In fact, it's coming up very soon.
Well, I know.
Very
and
soon.
I might say I've also been a past member of the Moratorium Committee and also the Shadow Pines Land Use Committee. And at that time, the Clark House was out of bounds. We weren't allowed to even consider it. And I know that the master plan for Shadow Pines says nothing at all about the Clark House. So I put this to you folks. Maybe you need to get some input from the town on where you ought to be heading, what to do with the Clark House. I consider it an asset to the town. 4 years ago, we voted to spend $3 million to save Shadow Pines, including the Clark House. And as a neighbor, I want to see it saved, but as a taxpayer, I think you have an obligation to show some stewardship and protect that asset instead of just letting it go the way the barn is gone. And well, that's all I have to say.
Duly noted.
One question. I understand the town received some grant money through this federal stimulus, one of the stimulus programs. How much was that?
Some ARPA funds. I believe that the total is about $3 million we have
I'm sorry?
received. Ms. Ivers is probably over there, right? Carrie Ivers, our Director of Developmental Services.
$1,000, $1 million?
Oh, no.
I believe it was just shy of 4 million. I think it's
Okay.
upper 3, if
Yep.
I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Like 3.8. And certainly I'll apologize in advance to Barbara, our Finance Director, if I'm misrepresenting that information. But I think it was
And
close to 4 million.
distributed in two separate
two
payments,
payments.
one that maybe we've received and one
One I
that's
think we've received. I'm not
anticipated.
sure if the second one has come through yet.
We have received one, right, and we've allotted some of that money already.
Might I suggest that some of that money be reserved to preserve a historical landmark building, the Clark House? I know it's in sad shape. I've read the engineering report, and it's only getting worse, and it's sat there 4 years, and if it sits there another 3 years, it's going to be toast. And I suggest you take some of that grant money and in addition to, repaving the north end of Shadow Pines with blacktop for pickleball courts. I got nothing against pickleball, but I don't like to see trees taken down and the golf course level to put in acres of blacktop for parking and other stuff that's kind of permanent. We thought we preserved Shadow Pines so that it would be kept natural, and anything that was done there in the way of development would be reversible, easily reversible. And I'm not opposed to pickleball, but I just don't like to see our Shadow Pines get developed. We tried to save it from development. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank
for your input. We will take that into consideration. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I see no calls, and I see no emails coming in. You will have another chance to participate at the end of this session. I do have one email that came in today to the Supervisor's office, and I just wanted to he wanted it read into the record. Dear Mrs. Drawe, I want to take a moment to thank you and the Town Department of Public Works for the ongoing cleanup on the swale on Gloria Drive. Over time, there's been a lot of tree fall and dead foliage accumulation in the swale, and the folks at the Public Works have done a fine job of cleanup and removal so far. We know the Public Works Department is always busy, and we appreciate the time that is being allocated to this project. And that was from George Madden at 2146 Gloria Drive. So thank you for that. Our next order of business is the approval of minutes. Before you, on board, you have the November 7th. Can I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Councilwoman Kohl, second by Councilwoman Lee. May I have a roll call vote?
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Next order of business is petitions. Board, have we received any petitions?
I have not.
Okay, thank you. Our next order of business is resolutions by function. And since this is our organizational meeting, you're going to see many resolutions tonight that are yearly housekeeping functions that must be voted and approved to keep our town running smoothly so that the residents here are served. So our clerk will read the resolutions, title in a group, Law and Finance, Public Works, Public Safety, and Community Service, at which time the councilperson representing the area will further detail some of those resolutions. So resolutions by function, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Supervisor.
Thank you.
Before I start with our law and finance section, I do want to let people know that it has been brought to my attention that our first resolution had a typo on page 6 stating that the town board work session will begin at 7 p.m., but that has already been amended to 6:30, as has been going on through 2022. It has been corrected. It is corrected on the web and also in our original resolution.
Thank you.
Okay, so 23T001, adoption of town board rules and procedures for 2023. 23T2, reaffirming Town of Penfield's core values. 3, adoption of wage and salary schedule and appointment of officials and employees for 2023. And as you notice, I'm going to be reading all of each section, and then it will be discussed. 4, authorization for supervisor to execute small contracts. 5, banking arrangements for the town of Penfield for 2023. 6, setting holidays for non-union employees for 2023. 7, setting holidays for union employees for 2023. Number 8, naming of a labor relations consultant to the town of Penfield. Number 9, monthly reports to town board. Number 10, designation of official newspapers for 2023. 11, town membership in various organizations for 2023. Number 12, continuation of petty cash and cash drawer funds. Number 13, setting 2023 salary for chairs and members of the Planning, Zoning, Energy, and Environmental Conservation Committee and Historic Preservation Boards. 14, authorize the town supervisor to sign contractual agreement with Bremen Post 1220 of the American Legion. Number 15, bonding of town officials and employees. 16, authorization for contract for legal services. Number 17, authorization for the supervisor to execute change orders. Number 18, continuation of legal services with Hurwitz and Fine PC. 19, appointments to the planning board. 20, appointment of chair to the planning board. 21, appointment of zoning board of appeals. 22, appointment of chair to the zoning board of appeals. 23, authorization for town supervisor to sign a professional service contract with Bruce Zaretsky and Associates for landscape consultant to the town of Penfield for 2023 through 2024. Number 24, authorization for town supervisor to sign a professional service contract with Costage Engineering for a survey consultant to the town of Penfield for 2023 through 2024. Number 25, authorization for town to sign a professional service contract with Barton and LeJudas for environmental services to the town of Penfield for 2023 through 2024. Number 26, setting a public hearing to consider a local law to modify the previously adopted mixed-use district moratorium law. Number 27, authorization for supervisor to sign a service agreement with Farman & Son Sign Service LLC to provide and post signs on properties subject to review by various boards in the town of Penfield. Number 28, naming of an architectural consultant to the town of Penfield. 29, creation of Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. Number 30, 2023 employee handbook revisions. Number 31, authorization to sign contracts with court stenographer.
Madam Clerk, I have two resolutions that need corrections. Under 23T-26, setting a public hearing to consider local law to modify the previously adopted mixed-use district moratorium, I have two typo corrections. In the first paragraph, July 18th, 2022 should read July 20th, 2022. And in the fourth paragraph, July 18th at 6:30 should read January 18th at 6:30 p.m. And in 23T-30, the creation of an Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee, the town board liaison should read Bob Ockenden.
So you said which number was that?
I'm sorry, 23T-30. I'm sorry, did I say, I'm sorry, 29. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Should be a liaison instead of Marie Cinti and Debbie Drawe, should be Bob Ockenden.
Okay.
With these corrections, I so move resolutions 1 through 31.
I second that.
Thank you. And I'd just like to take a couple minutes and to speak on a couple of these. There's many of them, but a couple that I felt are really important. And the first one is Resolution 2, which is reaffirming the Town of Penfield's core values. So we all know that it's important to us, especially as a town board, that we have a safe and a healthy community to live in. And standing for rightful and fair justice for all, the town board remains firm in its commitment against all forms of racism, discrimination, and abuse of power against our community members. As town, we continue our commitment to stand for rightful and fair justice for all. We continue a tradition of fiscal responsibility, as the town of Penfield has earned a AA credit rating from Moody's Investors, one of the highest in the county and state. This rating and reputation allows Penfield to secure low-interest financing for capital projects and assist with cash flow throughout the year. Protecting the environment and our taxpayers, and provided timely and factual communications. The town board is committing to sharing accurate information with the residents and media outlets, and inform citizens who follow, consider, and act upon fact-based information, contribute to a meaningful community discourse and effective involvement with their government. And in my next, on Resolution 22T-19, appointments to the Planning Board. Be it resolved that Robert Knauer, Jr., who is here tonight in the audience, be appointed to the Penfield Planning Board for a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025, at annual salary established by the town board. And again, I want to thank you, Bob, for your service on this board and your continued service for us. So thank you. So roll call vote, please.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now I'm going to read the rest of them. I apologize. I was thinking. My next one is 23T-20, appointment of chair to the planning board. Be it resolved that Alan Hetzke Jr. be appointed to the chair of the planning board for the year 2023 at an annual salary established by the town board. A.J. Hetzke has been on our planning board and doing a wonderful job as our chair, so we thank him for continuing. And Resolution 23T-21, appointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Matt Piston and George Flansburgh should be appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025, at an annual salary established by the town board. So I want to thank both these members for serving on this board. 23T-2022, appointment of a chair to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Be it resolved that Dan DeLaus be appointed the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the year 2023 at an annual salary established by the town board. And Dan has served on this board for well over 20 years. He's done a wonderful job, and we thank him for continuing to serve on this important board. In 23T-26, setting a public hearing to establish, to consider a local law to modify the previously adopted mixed-use district moratorium. And we'll read this just to remind people of this. The town board of the town of Penfield wishes to consider adopting a proposed law of 2023, which would amend and extend the previously adopted mixed-use district moratorium that was adopted on July 20th, 2022, as local law number 2 of 2022. Whereas the town is determined that we do need additional time to finalize the proposed revisions to the existing regulations, requirements, considerations, and procedures for application review within the mixed-use development district. So therefore, be it resolved that the town board shall hold a public hearing at the Penfield Town Hall on January 18th at 6:30 to consider the proposal and to hear all person interested on the question of the adoption of the proposed law, a copy of which is attached hereof in Section A and made a part of. Be it resolved that the town clerk be and hereby is directed to publish and post this a notice to the public hearing on the official signboard of the town in a manner prescribed by law. The first publication thereof to be not less than 5 days and not more than 30 days before the date set for the public hearing. And attached to that is the that public hearing. And lastly, the creation, it's a very important creation of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. So in 1972, the town board established the Conservation Board to replace the Conservation Advisory Council, giving the Conservation Board the general powers and duty specifically enumerated in Section 239 and 239X and 239Y of the General Municipal Law. In 2010, the town board established an Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee to build upon decades of work by the town to adopt practices that benefit both the environment and our taxpayers. And whereas the town board understands the goals of the Energy and Environmental Advisory Council and the Conservation Board overlap, and we feel it's in the best interest of the town of Penfield to merge these two groups into the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. And whereas the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee will promote energy and environmental stewardship, encouraging energy and resource conservation and use of native plantings, review development in environmentally protected overlay districts, which are EPODs, and advocate for public policy. So therefore be it resolved that the Town of Penfield Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee and the Town of Penfield Conservation Board are merged and will be known as the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. And be it further resolved that the new EECC shall be vested with all the powers and duties of a conservation board under both the Town of Penfield Code and the applicable state statutes. And together with the additional powers and duties previously assigned to the former EEAC. And therefore be it resolved that the following appointments to these Penfield Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee for the term ending on December 31st, 2023. The chairperson will be Sinette Cavalier. Members will be Daniel Moore, Pat Schlickler, Roseanne Cohen, Roy Green. Town Board Liaison will be Bob Ockenden, and the Town of Penfield staff will be Mark Valentine, Town Engineer, Matt Prinzing, Planning Department, and Sarah Waterman, the Engineering Department. Thank you.
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you.
Our next section is Public Works. Number 32, setting sewer entrance fees for 2023. Number 33, authorization to sign a contract for beaver trapping services with Donald C. Newcomb. 34, appointment of chair to Historic Preservation Board. Number 35, appointments to Watershed Management Committee. And number 36, purchase of a 2022 Hitachi ZW80 wheel loader.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I make a motion for Resolutions 23T-32 through 36 to be reviewed and voted by the board.
Second.
Prior to taking the vote, I would call out for the public awareness for Resolutions 34 and 35, appointments to the Historic Preservation Board. The board wishes to appoint Thomas J. Combs as Chair of Historic Preservation Board for the year 2023 at an annual salary as established by the town board. For Watershed Management Committee, the board seeks to appoint Mark Valentine as Chair, Town of Penfield Engineer, Eric Tate, Mike O'Connor, Bob Moore, Edward Freeman, Michael Guyon, Mike Simon, Al Bracolo, and Donna Spinella as members of the Watershed Management Committee.
Okay.
Roll call vote.
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
4 ayes. Our next section is Public Safety. Number 37, appointments to the Transportation Committee. 38, ordering a controlled demolition of an unsafe structure located at 1960 Clark Road. Number 39, authorization for supervisor to sign contract for security services with Intercept Security, Inc. for town facilities. Number 40, authorization for supervisor to sign a contract for security services with Intercept Security, Inc. for the justice courts. Number 41, court enforcement officer appointments. And number 42, authorization of temporary assignment of judges.
I'll make a motion to move Resolutions 23T-037 through 23T-042 with one note. Resolution 23T-038, Deputy Supervisor, I'd like to request that this item be removed from the list of resolutions tonight, as it's the intention of this board to discuss this matter at a future session of the town board.
Thank you. I'll second that.
I just have one other comment real quick on Resolution 23T-037. I just want to acknowledge our appointments to the Transportation Committee. I'd like to just list them. Lori Enos, Tim Freiler, Mary Sweeney, Jason Ebbs, representatives from the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, Captain Alberti, Lieutenant Thomas, Dan McCusker from the New York State DOT, and from our town engineering department, Sarah Waterman and Mark Valentine, and from our town Department of Public Works, Eric Tate, and of course, Debbie Drawe is the chair of that committee here representing the town board. So a thank you to all of those folks who serve on this important committee for us.
Thank you. Roll call vote?
If I can just make,
I'm sorry.
Council Ockenden and Deputy Supervisor, with respect to withdrawing Resolution 23T-038, I would also support that as well. Again, I think for the benefit of those who did participate, we do very much appreciate your attendance tonight and sharing your feedback. We do appreciate also Monday morning quarterbacks. I think they play an important role on the team. We received several emails and notes from residents sharing some concerns and additional feedback, having questions, and as a result, it became clear to the board that we're not prepared to move a resolution without giving consideration to the public input. So as a result of that, I think, again, I thank Councilman Ockenden and Deputy Supervisor for taking that into consideration and understanding the public input. So I would be supportive of withdrawing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lee. Roll call vote?
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
4 ayes. The last is our community services. Number 43, authorization for supervisor to sign contract for Dayton's Corner School Coordinator. Number 44, appointment of Local History Room Advisory Committee. Number 45, appointments to the Trails Committee. Number 46, appointments to the Library Board. And number 47, authorization for supervisor to sign recreation contracts.
I'd like to move the resolutions 23T-043 through 23T-047 with one thing, 045 be removed and dealt with at a later date. That's the appointment of the Trails Committee with the understanding that we need to appoint the Parks and Recreation Board before we submit the names for the Trails Committee. So, is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, so with that, authorization for the supervisor to sign contracts for the Dayton's Corner School Coordinator. Town supervisor is authorized to sign a contract with Barbara Quinn as coordinator of Dayton's Corner School from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023 for a fee of $3,600. She's done a wonderful job for many years, and we're glad she's continuing on. The appointment of the Local History Room Advisory Committee. That is the following appointed for 1 year, expiring December 31st, is Jan Brayman, Tom Kennelly, Diane Dayton Riley, Jay Thompson, Lynn Marcus, and Mindy McLaren. And appointments to the last one, the Library Board, is resolved for the appointment for the Penfield Library Board of Trustees for a term as listed below. We have 3 new members. We had 3 people that left us this past year. And we interviewed people we really enjoyed, and these are the new people. Justin Araki, his term will be 2023 to 24. Anna Williams, her term will be 2023 to 2026. And Harish Nayak, his is 2023 to 2027. Those
you.
are my appointments.
Thank you, Councilman
I had a
Kohl.
question on Resolution 47. There is a proposed contract with First Lego League Youth Robotics.
Right.
Is that for the 2022 term or for
Well,
the?
this is just a resolution like we'd have on a regular night, authorization for the supervisor to sign recreation contract. And Larry Lewis is the person that's our contact with the Rochester Community Robotics. He's an instructor for classes that are held through the Recreation Department.
So but
That
I'm asking-
particular one was already paid for. He's been
Oh,
doing
yes.
it, and so we needed to
Yeah.
push it through
It's a retroactive.
for this
Okay,
meeting.
so it's a okay, so that wasn't clear to me. Okay, thank you.
No, you were worried that was wrong, like we should say 23 and not
Yeah, like if
22.
it's-
Right.
No, yeah.
Did the supervisor act without us voting? Yeah.
Right.
Thank
would
you,
not.
thank you.
Thank you. So, roll call vote?
Draw.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye, thank you.
Ockenden.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. So this concludes our resolutions by function. Board, is there any old business before us? Seeing none, any new business?
I'm not sure if this is new business per se, but I just wanted to mention, we had some discussion with the folks about the Clark House. And I just want to direct them to our town website.
Very good. Very good.
All the information, I think, things that we've done over the last several years with the Clark House studies and that sort of thing have been put on the website. So if you go to penfield.org and click underneath projects of community interest, there'll be everything that I think we have will be
There
listed
is.
on there. So feel free to check that out.
Thank you, Councilman Ockenden. Very good information. So this, again, is your second chance for public participation. Anyone else in the audience would like to say anything? Okay, I believe we have somebody on the phone. David,
Deputy Supervisor,
Yep.
you have Dennis Spinella on the
Yep.
phone.
are you on, Donna?
Yes, I am.
Hi, good
Thanks for
good
taking
evening,
my
Donna.
call. Good evening. Debbie and everyone else on the board, just wanted to let you know that I'm actually speaking on behalf of the Friends of Shadow Pines tonight, as well as myself. We wanted to convey that how terribly disappointed we are, and I'm sure many other people are, that the barn at Shadow Pines was going to have to be demolished. But with us, it makes us that much more concerned about the condition of the Clark House, which we and I'm sure all of you view as one of the town's most treasured historical buildings. We understand that there were some major issues with the Clark House, including extensive mold problems in the newer sections that will not be easily resolved. So we would like to understand better what the town is doing to prevent further degradation of the Clark House. Secondly, I just heard you mention that Mr. Ockenden mentioned that there is a special section on the Penfield Town website for finding information about the Clark House. But I guess I'm going to refer specifically to the announcement that the town made about an architectural firm, Plan Studio, on November 12th of 2020 that was preparing a report with both short-term and long-term recommendations and what actions would need to be taken to make the building usable. Is that document on that website?
Not yet.
I don't believe it
You haven't
is.
received it yet.
I haven't received it, yes.
We haven't received
I haven't seen that, no. Donna, that document would not be on their website yet.
It hasn't been
'cause that's
received.
Well, so yeah, I guess, but it's from November of 2020.
No.
Oh, of 2020.
Oh, that's-
I thought you
that
said
would be it.
2022.
That would have
No,
been
no,
on there.
2020.
There's a new one. We have another one, another request for the firm to get some information for us that we should get soon. But everything else
Okay.
should be on the website.
It should be from then.
we'll double
Carrie,
check.
we have our Director of Development Services, Ms. Carrie Ivers, back. She maybe
yeah.
can,
Bergman Associates is the firm that has since, I think they conducted an updated analysis of the building. They're currently engaged in an updated study to explore some additional options per the town board's, at the town board's direction. That effort is underway, and they're preparing some material to present to the town board in the coming weeks. I believe they're scheduled for an upcoming work session. I think it's this month.
it is.
Yeah.
It is
So
the
they'll
end
have
of
more
the month.
information to be sharing. So I would advise the public at large to be on the lookout for upcoming work session agendas. And you should see the Clark House additional analysis as part of that.
Thank you for that clarification, Carrie. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And Carrie, I will follow up with you offline then via email to just get where the original report is, because that is something a number of us have looked for and we couldn't find, and it may well be there, but it's just escaping us. So I'll follow up offline with you about that. But sort of getting back to sort of my first question about what the town is doing to prevent further degradation of the Clark House, taking a step away from that. What we would really like to understand also is the town's vision for the future of the Clark House, and in what time frame this vision is to be realized. And we understand the report from Bergman is going to, some of that will be conditioned on what the Bergman report will be. But I think it needs to be made abundantly clear to people in the town, maybe via another type of either a public meeting or a work session or something, because people ask those of us on Friends of Shadow Pines a lot, what's going on with the Clark House? I mean, it is the most commonly asked question of any of us. And I think it would be in your best interest as the town leaders and ours as Friends of Shadow Pines if there could be some really wide open communication about what's going on. We also wanted to make it clear that over time, collectively as Friends of Shadow Pines and also as individuals, we have expressed our eagerness to participate and to assist in any ways possible to advance the progress on the Clark House. We raised the alarm about the barn in the Clark House starting years ago, offering concrete assistance, not just our opinions or concerns. So before the Clark House, has any chance of suffering the same fate as the barn, we're really looking to you specifically on the town board to take some swift and definitive action to preserve this landmark in the best possible ways, given what is preservable about it. So that is the end of my comments. And if you want to address them here, that's fine. Otherwise, I will wait till something comes out from the Bergman report.
So Donna, I would say that, that we will make sure that we communicate and that when we're going to discuss it at the work session, make sure that you are aware of when it's going to happen going forward. If we haven't been clear enough about communicating information on that, we'll make sure we'll correct that for you. But it's this board's. I think I speak for the board that we're committed to saving the parts of the original Clark House and doing something with that property. We right now are aware that we don't want it to go into more disrepair. I mean, we want to move forward, but we want to do it in a progressive way that we know that we're getting the right information and we're doing the right with what we have. So, but we will make sure that, as Carrie had mentioned, it will be at a future work session. It is scheduled for later this month, I believe. The end of the 25th. If I'm wrong, incorrect, I don't want to. Is it the 25th? We had looked at it. I don't know, Carrie. Maybe.
I believe, and I apologize if I want to just make sure, I believe it's going to be on the agenda for the next week's work session.
For the
on
11th?
the 11th.
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can clarify that
Okay.
as we speak.
Is that dependent upon receiving the information? I would
Correct,
assume?
yeah,
Yes,
so we're
we
waiting
were-
on an updated report from the architecture firm that's been working on it.
Posted on the website.
But I want to double check that. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure it's the 11th.
Okay.
And certainly, the agendas are posted on the website, generally the Friday before
Yes.
the meetings.
Yes.
So I would just advise folks to check this Friday?
This Friday,
Wow, time just sneaks
The
right up on you.
agenda will be up sometime in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. And just one last follow-up question. Is there money budgeted in this year's budget for a project of this nature?
I can say no, that we probably have not. It's not in this year's budget. It's not being said that we can't, that we aren't looking at other ways, the creative ways that we might be able to fund this project. So that's,
It's one of the things we're looking for the
talk about.
numbers, for
Yeah,
this next report that's coming that'll tell us, because we did have a work session, and it did go through Historic Preservation Board as well, conversations about what can we do with the Clark House, what's the most important part? And what came away with was the original section was the most important part to save. And we sent the word back to the architect to look into what that would cost to just maintain that and perhaps have a lodge, something like that, and as part of an annex to that property. But the part that was the golf course part that wasn't as significant, perhaps that would come down, but the part that's so important, the Clark House, that would remain. And that we
Gotcha.
all agreed on that would, that was what we were going towards with the next report.
Yeah, and I think it's important to clarify that without having received all the numbers in full to really understand the anticipated scope of work and scope of
right.
costs that it would be incurred, it's hard to say whether or not we've fully budgeted for it. So I don't want to give the misimpression that we have no funds allocated, because again, it's right. Okay, thank you. So-
And if I may, just to that point too, that doesn't stop DPW. I know Mr. Tate, they've looked at some of the water issues on the property. There was some, drainage issues, and I don't want to speak for them. I believe they did address some of those things. So they certainly, we have the means to try to mitigate some of these issues so that they don't continue to get worse. I know they're keeping an eye on the roof and making sure that, there's no water leaks and those sorts of things. So we certainly have the means to take care of some of these things throughout the year as they develop while we're trying to pull the rest of it together. So.
Good point.
Okay, great. Yeah, because obviously the issue of things like if the barn had a tarp on it several years ago or whatever, not saying that it wouldn't have deteriorated, but it probably wouldn't have deteriorated to the extent it was. So we just want to make sure that whatever can be done preemptively to this, sort of proactively to at least halt the current deterioration or keep it to a minimum is being done, even if the final plans for the outcome of the Clark House are not settled as yet. So, all right. Well, thanks very much for the information.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, and I should thank you again for your call.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Is there I don't see anyone else is on. I don't see anyone else on hold. So. Sure, you can come back. Sure, come on up again.
I'm not trying to come in hot, but this is, I just wonder if you can imagine like what this looks like sitting back here, listening to this, like just kind of no answers and talking in circles. I guess my question is, and I didn't want to go backwards and you don't, I guess, owe me an explanation, but I'm just curious as to why, and I don't know where the people from this historic preservation board are, but why was the barn just allowed to deteriorate? And like, was there ever a plan for the barn? Was it ever talked about? Because I think you can see, like this lady just said on the phone, very clearly why everybody is so concerned that you're just going to let the house deteriorate now, which is like, and we're just, to 4 years, and we're just still, we're paying architects, instead of throwing a roof on it and, taking care of some simple business. It's a house. I mean, it's not the Eiffel Tower. It's a house in a barn made out of wood. Like, we need to pay architects over and over and over to tell us what to do with a house, instead of taking that money and just making some decisions in a plan and clean it up and do something with it, instead of just spinning our wheels, looking at this thing rotting away year after year. I guess my question is two things. One is, who really, in the end, is responsible for the decisions on these two pieces? And so you're not going to tear the barn down. Is that what you took off the table today?
At this point, that discussion is going to be held at a later date on whether it's necessary, what information we've learned
So
after opening this up.
what discussion? Like with who? Like, who is responsible for these discussions and decisions? Like, who is it the four of you that decide?
It is the town board.
Ultimately.
So the four of you.
But we're trying to get input from the town. We are asking for, we're asking for input from the residents as to what they would like to see
Well, this
done.
lady that's in charge of the committee that just called in, the Friends of Shadow Pines, seems to be completely out of the loop. I mean, of all the people in the town of Penfield, wouldn't you think that she would be like fully involved in this? And I mean, I've never heard boo about this barn, the house, nothing. Like, I've never seen an email, I've never seen anything whatsoever. And I'm not trying to come in hot.
I understand.
And roast you guys, but you got to understand what this looks like sitting back here. We've been driving by this barn, watching it deteriorate, and then we're paying architects and engineers to tell us about a barn and a house, like what to do with a barn and a house for 4 years. And we're watching it deteriorate. We hire architects to come in and analyze this, let it deteriorate for a couple more years, and then pay them again to come in and tell us, like, what? That it's deteriorated more? I guess I'm just wondering, like, is there a person that's like the lead of this, or how can the people of Penfield get involved and do something with this before it just crumbles? Like, what do we do? How does one participate in solving this problem? Because nothing's happening.
Okay,
This
so
is ridiculous.
I think that the next step is, and we're going to have that work session to discuss this.
What is a work session?
So a
I
work
don't even
session
know
is
what
where
that
the town
means.
board gets together, just like on next week, on next Wednesday is our work session, where if that's on our work session, we will be discussing that. Hopefully we have already been looking at, we've asked the architect to give us a plan. We'd like to do something. The board wants to do something. We're committed to do something with the Clark House. As Councilwoman Kohl said, the original Clark House, which is, we'd like to preserve that and do something, add on to it, make it, if we're making it a facility, another lodge or something like that, that's the plan that we'd like to talk to and look at with them, because we do want to preserve that Clark House. It has been a number of years. The barn was never, there was never a discussion about what we were going to do with the barn or what we weren't.
Why is that?
And you know what?
Why is that, though? I guess that's what we all want to know, and that's exactly why we're so concerned.
Right.
Because it's just sitting there rotting away. What? Nobody says anything. Nobody's saying anything.
Okay. Well, Councilwoman Kohl, we were all a part. We were part of some of these
The emphasis has
conversations.
always been on the Clark House,
Right.
and a former town supervisor, he led the conversation, and we got Bergman Associates to say what could be done. At one point, we were talked about maybe a restaurant could come in and they could help pay for some interior improvements, and then that didn't work, and nobody else came forward, and now it's all just on the town. And it's not so simple, this house, because it is almost 200 years old, and there's a foundation, and it's,
Yeah, it's,
there's a lot of issues.
I understand
A lot of issues.
that.
And so, as time went on, so we talked, it came down to, we had a conversation, a Historic Preservation Board, they agreed that the most important thing is to keep the house. And if we took off the other part, that's like where the restaurant part is now, and put possibly a lodge or something like that, because we're always in need of that around this town. Everybody wants that, right? Then that could help fund whatever improvements one could do, you know, is in the future. So this is the.
So after we
this
paid
is
the
next step.
architect 2 years ago, what happened since then?
It's not truly an architect, it's the engineers
Whatever,
that came in.
whoever you
and
paid,
that's
I'm sure
what-
thousands upon thousands upon
And we went through,
thousands.
don't forget, a COVID situation, all this, they
Yeah, there
came
was-
in, we had meetings that, we had to do on Zoom. I mean, it's not.
Okay.
like
Yeah,
it's
and one
easy.
of the studies, I know it sounds
Easy time.
redundant and sounds like it's kind of repetitive, but one of the studies specifically addressed the abatement process, being the vintage of the home, and what would need to be abated out of the structure that was, hazardous materials. That's kind of its own separate piece that we need to know about, because there's a lot of costs involved with having that done, and that has to be done before we can start any of the work. So I'm not well-versed in all the pieces and all the moving parts. That's why we rely on some of our professional services to help us navigate through that process. So it may sound like we keep kicking it back to, but sometimes it's for specific needs through that process, if that explains a little bit of it.
So who's in charge of, is it like a group? Is
Well, so
it
we would
not
vote?
one person,
No,
or, is somebody taking the lead on this? Is somebody responsible for moving this forward every week, every month?
Well-
Or if not, how does one get involved in doing this?
So,
Like, how does one, how can we
so
help you to do something and move this forward?
move this forward. I think that, I guess, and I should say, I should raise my hand because I'm as filling in for the supervisor, Cindy. I'm the deputy supervisor, so I guess I'm leading this charge on this next, going into the work session to discuss the specific, the Clark House, and I guess the barn now that we are going to, going to look in what's going to happen to that. That being said,
And is
you'd
that
be
a
more than
public
welcome to
thing,
come.
or is that like the four
No,
of you?
you can,
or
our work
who
sessions
does
are open.
that?
You're most welcome to come to a work session and hear a discussion, what's happening at the town, how we're discussing things. We can also reach out and let you know about what's going on, tell you how you can get involved when we know what we're going to be, what the process is for helping out on this, what we're going to do with the Clark House. The Clark House and the barn are kind of two separate things.
I understand that. We
So I
said
guess
that
the piece
already.
we were going to deal with today was the Clark House, or the barn rather, is become a safety issue, a really serious safety
And
issue.
you said we were going to deal with that today, and what does that mean? We were
Well,
going to deal with it
we were
today?
looking to mitigate, we have to do something with this barn. It's gotten,
Right.
unless the board feels differently now,
Okay, but
and we do
now-
something
right,
different.
So now it's being, it's halted, the demolition's
halted,
going to
sure.
halt, so now what
Yep.
happens?
So can I, wait, I'm sorry, can I
Sure.
clarify,
Yep,
please?
sure.
So what was, just to at least set the timeline, our Director of Public Works presented to the four of us, typically there would be five, but with the supervisor currently out on leave, there's four of us. To answer your question directly, who would be responsible to vote yes or no? It is the four of us, with input from the Director of Public Works, other committees, both with the town or, like Friends of Shadow Pines. On December 14th, the Director of Public Works said, hey, look at, the barn is in a very bad condition. We are asking you to authorize the removal of the barn. We had very little information at the time sufficient to make this decision, and we felt very uncomfortable, for the most part, to remove such an old building without, all the information. We had questions, I think, of how much would it cost to, if we wanted to do something else with it, what is involved in the demolition, who said it's unsafe, what is the true condition of the barn, so forth, right?
Okay.
So that we had outstanding questions, and then we just felt without public awareness.
What's been happening over the last 12 months?
So that's a very fair question, and I think she deserves an answer to very directly. I think, and I don't mean any disrespect as a newcomer to the board, this being my first term, but it's I think facts are that it was not really maintained, and it was not a.
Well, no, we know that.
Yeah.
But
I think
mean,
everybody knows that.
What's been happening in your monthly meetings or weekly meetings or?
I can honestly say there was, before this happened, before we knew that there was an issue with the safety and the structure of it was getting deteriorating, this wasn't a discussion. It wasn't brought to us as a discussion, as a safety issue.
Brought to you by who?
As Councilman Lee said, our DPW director, any facility staff, parks, and
Do you guys live here? Do you
We
live in
do.
Penfield? You
Sure.
don't drive by this
Yeah.
thing daily and watching the whole thing crumbling before your eyes? The roof's deteriorating, the walls are deteriorating. I mean, okay, I'm just, all right, well, it's clear, you guys have been doing nothing with this, okay? So I think that's clear to everybody, and I'm talking you're new, but you seem to have some interest in this. So what do we do now? Because it's clear nobody is taking the lead on this thing. So how does one get involved in this group that is capable of taking on a task, making a goal, and getting to it? How does one get involved in this?
Run for office? It's not something you bring in people off residents in on this decision-making. But we open up the meetings to hear what everyone has to say, we get letters and so on like that, but.
Okay.
Hold on, sorry, Linda, I don't think
bottom line is
I am sorry, that came across as kind of like a sarcastic response, and I don't think.
I didn't take it as sarcastic,
No,
but
it
it just speaks to the whole, it just reinforces everything that we all think and know already. That we ended up here in how we ended up here, right? Because nothing is being done, right? I think that's pretty fair to say, except for paying architects and engineers to give us reports that we don't do anything with, okay? So I think we've established that, and so
that's unfair.
I think
it's not fair.
We are going to
The
do
thing
something
is-
with these, we are going to proceed with this, with the Clark House. I can assure you this, we are going to do something with the Clark House. That is something that we're committed to. As far as the barn, I guess you're right, we have not addressed the barn, honest.
Or the house. I mean, nothing's happened with the house.
That being said, we've had reports in there, we've looked at, as Councilman Ockenden said, they had to look at, there was mold abatement, they had to look at some things, some issues in the barn. We have been doing some research on that, and we have, doing our due diligence to make sure. Again, have we acted on it? Have we done anything as far as what we're going to do, plan forward? Not yet, no. We are.
Okay.
We are.
So if you don't
committed to
bring
doing that.
people in off the street, then how do we, being me and this couple here and all of the people in Penfield that have lived here their whole lives, how do we participate in bringing this forward, like bringing something to fruition here?
Well, we're waiting.
Commenting on the ideas or.
You're doing that right now.
Yeah, you are, yeah, and you're,
we
giving us.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not doing anything because we're going to all go home, and I think that anybody in their right mind would expect that what's been going on for the last 4 years is just going to go on. You guys don't even know when the next meeting is. You know what I mean? It's 4 years. You don't have money really budgeted for anything. There's no plan for this. So I'm just asking, again, it's not my intent to dwell on the past 4 years. I think we all agree nothing has been done. There's been no intent to do anything or very little. So what I'm asking is, how do the people of Penfield participate in this effort so that we know that the house is not going to be left to just get moldier and moldier and crumble month after month after year after year? What do we do?
Well,
That's what I'm asking.
We have had about, when we had the referendum for the Shadow Pines, that piece of property, what we're speaking of, wasn't part of the referendum. That was, the town bought it outright to keep it separate from what, the land to preserve, the golf course. And we had an advisory committee of citizens all working about what they would like to see on it. I mean, that's what Bob Peterson was speaking here tonight. He came, he was part of that. He was part of the moratorium committee for that. He was on we had a lot of people down at Spinella. They were all a part of this. This isn't like we did things in a vacuum. So a master plan had been created for that whole area. You can't do everything. So that was a priority too, to deal with what's going on with the Shadow Pines. Meanwhile, on the other end of it, Tony LaFountain and Jim Costello, our former director of development, the two of them, they were working to see if we could get somebody to come in as a restaurant or something. They were working really hard on that, and that fell through. In the meantime, they had the Bergman Associates and company coming out there and finding out about the foundation and the roof and all this and what can be saved and not saved. I mean, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me. I love history. I don't want to see anything come down. But that's how we've been, dealing with it. Now, the barn wasn't a part of the architectural and engineering plan. Everything was on the other side of the street. It was all, what could we do with this? And when we talked to businesses, no one wanted to talk about the barn either. It was always about the garage that's behind the Clark House and the Clark House. So that's where the emphasis was. It's on us that we didn't follow up with the barn as well. I mean,
Okay.
I can take that.
But what I'm asking is, how can we,
Now?
the residents of Penfield and the people that care, and capable, competent, not
Yeah.
some, weirdos off the street.
No.
Competent, smart people that run large businesses and do construction and tackle millions of things every day in a real world where you have to, perform at your job and succeed. How do those people that we have lots of help you guys move this forward?
If you have ideas, if others, I mean, that's the thing. If somebody has ideas about what can be done, whatever, they want to throw them out to us, that's under consideration. But, it's.
Could I interject?
Go ahead.
We appreciate input.
So typically what would happen now is you've made your point, as has the Knauers and down at Spinella. And the town board would go back and have a meeting to discuss putting together some sort of plan, maybe and I'm not saying these are the plans, but putting a plan together to have a public information meeting that all the public can come to and ask their questions. It usually starts out with the town board giving some detail on all the things that you have mentioned. There will go back also to talk about what should be done. It's been brought to their attention now on exactly what the residents want. It's a huge town, and the town board has many, many things, not to minimize the Clark House or the Shadow Pines. I lived at the top of Shadow Pines for many, many, many years, and I do go past that barn almost every day since my mother lives there. And I will say that I'm more interested right now as I'm driving, looking at the road and making sure no animals coming across. So I don't often look at the barn when I'm driving by. So the town board may have gone by many times, but also the same thing. But because you brought all this up, now it's going to go offline. Offline, they're going to discuss everything, and then some actions will be taken. The other part is that there's a project file, and anyone can send either the town supervisor or myself comments, concerns. It goes in the project file, which the town board looks at with the other committees, like the people from our Department of Public Works or Developmental Services, engineers that work here. And so this whole discussion is going to make it, just because this happened today, and now it's been brought to our attention, it is going to be discussed at length. Maybe committees will be formed, but, you know, it's great that you came here today to show the concern so that it's brought to the town board's attention. They are working on many, 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 many projects in the town, and so some things may not be seen right away, you know, maybe that's why this happened with the barn, but now we know. So they'll be able to take care of that and have committees, and you guys could be on the committee and
And I
come
do
forward.
appreciate your comments and your input, and you're not wrong. You know, we know that. We know some of the things that we've let go, you know.
Okay.
So we're
But
aware of that.
I'm not looking to blame, but if you don't mind me being
Sure.
blunt, I mean, you know, I can't, with this whole meeting and listening to this, things in my mind have just gotten like way worse than when I walked in the door. You know, I mean, at least I had some hope that, you know, something was happening. I don't know, something like, you know, that we just, you know, don't have any money or something. There was some effort to do this and some huge roadblock. You know, I guess my thing is what's done is done. I mean, I just,
And now we're gonna
I'm
move
going to walk
forward.
out the door with like barely any confidence that anything, I mean, you know, I don't live life expecting miracles to come. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so, you know, when I see something going on year after year after year, I don't expect, you know, some huge change to come this evening or you're going to go home and have some enormous come to Jesus moment. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm asking, you know, when you have a town of interested people, we're not broke. You know, we have barely anything in this town left. If you compare it to anywhere, any village, anything, Penn or Webster, Fairport, Pittsford, there's like nothing left here. So how we left this to just rot and deteriorate is beyond me. But nonetheless, I guess my point is we have lots of talented people. You have all kinds of people from a million different kinds of businesses. I guess the only thing that I would suggest strongly is that maybe you put some kind of other board together or something to gather a group of people who have skills in this, in some knowledge, in some wherewithal to get things done. Gather the information. Look, you know, this is the architect says, what can we do? And do something. You know, I mean, we're not building Rome. It's a house in a barn. It's a house in a barn. I mean, let's not let this run away with us.
Okay.
So can I just say
I don't
a
want to
few
go on
things?
and on all night. I gotta
Oh,
go,
no.
but you know, I
So
don't know
just
what else to
a couple
say.
things. Madam Clerk had said that the board would be taking the feedback offline. I think what that means is we take it to a work session. There are no other conversations or actions being done without public transparency. So again,
Right.
this discussion continues at the next work session, January 11th. And I think to answer some of the questions directly, what else can you do? We have committees and boards. I'm going to be asking that Ms. Ivers share her contact with you so that there is an exact point person for you or other members of the public for actual committees that bring these projects or as an accountability to the board, bring certain recommendations to the board, due diligence reports or so forth for our consideration, right? And then so again, what I had mentioned earlier before we got sidetracked was, again, it was brought to us on December 14th for immediate demolition. At that time, we did not, and which is why it's for a resolution tonight. But in the interim, we received enough feedback from the public that made us pause that that the four of us, elected or not, that the four of us are not going to make willy-nilly a decision for 30,000 residents. And that is part of the reason why we pulled it from the resolutions tonight to not vote on it. And so it's really important to hear your feedback. So I think as part of the larger discussion, we've kind of conflated the barn and the house, but I am interested in your thinking process. Like, again, driving by it every day, it's plain plain for a layperson to see that it's in disrepair. If it were up to you to save the barn and, let's say, expend a certain amount of dollars, whether or not it's budgeted, would you at this point save the barn?
For sure, absolutely.
And and
Again, not to be a Monday morning quarterback, but had I been like in charge of this area, if there was no interest, effort, money, whatever, to save this corner, the house and the barn, I would have sold it. Sold it 4 years ago when it was semi-salvageable. Sold it, cut it out and sold it to somebody that would be interested in preserve it. The house on Jackson with all the barns, the yellow one, went for like over $500,000. And then you could have used that money to, I don't mean that money, but had you sold the house, there's like I said before, there's like 5 historic homes in Penfield. I'm exaggerating, but there's none.
There's more than that.
There was 1,000 people at that open house on Jackson Road looking at that house. It went for hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking. That's what I would have done. I would have cut it out, sold it, and you could use the money for pathways, pickleball, whatever.
But that's a
have
decision.
some ideas.
But that's hindsight, right? I'm saying as we are receiving additional reports, like again, the board has asked for other engineering information, not to just like squander money, but unfortunately, it's regrettable that the condition is in such disrepair now. So we're trying to see if it's even viable to save portions.
Well, is the barn savable?
I guess that's
Not what we're hearing so far.
the information we've gotten. We're not sure it is.
The 4 of you, from
The information we've gotten from
structural engineer.
engineers, from an engineering
So
report.
what did they say? Is it or isn't? I mean, I guess everything's
Everything's
salvageable.
within for a
right?
price, right? For
I mean,
everything's
it's
everything.
wood, it's a
Right,
barn.
Right. And it ends up being how much money, do we want to spend money to save it? Probably. That's the answer. Or do we want to spend our money on something else? Or do we want to spend?
Well, who can answer because we have no idea what it costs?
Well,
Isn't that
that's
like
why
the whole first
That's one reason we
question?
pulled this. We're going to digest this more at a work session.
Again, the numbers.
We're going to get
We
the
need
number.
numbers.
We're going to get more figures so that we can figure out, looking at this. I know it seems like you're not getting an answer.
No,
We do appreciate.
I don't feel that. I just don't have any confidence. And
Well, I'm sorry that.
because we're,
For that.
this is what we're talking about.
Sure.
Like, if
I
this-
can see from
so,
your- yeah, I can see your
this
point.
is, you guys made the decision to knock it down to demolition.
No. So that is the one thing I want to clarify.
Well, kind of, whatever. I mean, that's what the post said, right? Online, but, okay, so you must have said, okay, all right, I would have expected that you said, okay, here's the choices. We can either fix it, this is what it costs to fix it, this is what it's gonna cost to knock it down. But you don't have this price? You don't have the price to save it,
To save it in entirety?
whatever.
save-
whatever.
We haven't,
So we received some numbers.
numbers, right.
And part of the information that I feel that we're lacking, and again, I think, it needs to be discussed at a work session because the 4 of us truthfully are not yet in agreement of how to proceed with the little information that we have. When you ask, is it salvageable? It's nuanced. What does it mean to save it? Save the entire structure, save certain framing, save historical remnants of the building, save the entire thing and expend millions. If it comes to that, we don't know yet. So again, we did not want to be rushed to a decision without having complete information. And so do we have some ballpark number to save a portion of it? Yes. Do we have details on what that scope of work entails? No. So we have some information, not all. Who is responsible for that information or who is going to be leading that? It is the Director of Public Works. That is the person that is appointed for the maintenance and all things pertaining to such properties of the town. We have authorized that person and asked that person, please, answer questions 1 through 5. And so we hope by next Wednesday we have additional information. If we don't, then I would be saying at the next work session, look, we've heard from members of the public. There is already some, I'm going to say, agitation, and we are not, certainly the other three.
More discussed, but go ahead. Just so we're all
agitation,
clear.
whatever you, I mean, you said
Just so
you're
you
coming in
know.
hot, so, okay, and that's fine. I think to restore at least your individual confidence in your officials, and then I think to restore some public trust and public faith, we have to have these discussions, heated or not, right? It's important for public information, and we.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So, again, I think, so to directly answer, right, what's going to happen next, who's responsible? We are taking it to a work session. We've asked at least the town staff that are appointed to serve the public in these roles to obtain that information for board consideration and a vote. When that resolution reappears, each of us will vote our conscience or based on what our fair assessment is of the facts. It may be unanimous, it may be not. The demolition is being considered. It has not, again, it has not been voted on. It may appear to, based on the press release or just like driving by, right? Like it's headed that way. But again, it has not been definitively voted to do that tonight.
And we will discuss it, as Councilwoman Lee said,
So I guess
on Wednesday.
my other question is, because I don't know how these things work, and I don't mean to come in, at the end of the game, but, so when you have these decisions to make, or town decisions to preserve some history, will there be, after you gather this information and go, okay, here's our choices, boop, ba-doop, ba-doop, do you bring it to the people? Do you put something out and say, all right, we're going to talk about this on Tuesday night. If you want to chime in, show up, and we're going to present the options and take a vote.
We don't do
We
it all in
don't
one
do
night.
it, we would.
You have
we-
a public hearing. A
So,
public hearing
yeah,
invites the
let's-
public to speak to the hearing that you're having to talk about what you're going to be doing. So it's like we bought the Clark House. We bought the Clark House. We didn't have to buy the Clark House. We could have just, they could have sold it because we
I
bought
wish they did.
No, they, not us. The town can't sell properties like that. We can buy property. So it ended up being a public land, and that's where we got it now. Well, we saved it. We saved the Clark House, and that was discussed here, and people came and heard, and really. Go through the website.
I did go
It's
through
got
the
so much.
website. I did go through, after I was looking for tonight's meeting, I did go through the website, and I went through all the minutes for months past, and I didn't see anything about the house at all. So that's what.
Right.
What, did I miss it? No. You're making a
I'm
face.
looking out at our employees out there. I have to look it up, but I thought it was right where Bob was reading it.
So
all.
it is certain documents with respect to the Clark House, the project, are available online. I did confirm during some of the discussion that the Bergman report and the slides that were presented to the board are available online. We do have Penfield staff here that can kind of show you.
Okay,
But what is?
I mean, what difference does it make? I could work at Bergman, who cares? That's not going to do anybody any good. We don't.
Yeah, but so
we're not
to answer
doing
your
anything
question
with
of
it.
how, our choice is going to be presented, I think at least, to bring at least the discussion to at least concrete action
yes.
steps. We need to take it to a work session. We've heard a lot. We need to digest it. It's clear that we're not prepared to vote immediately, right? I think it's
Yes.
fair to say,
Absolutely.
out of deference to the public, we need to consider this. And then maybe it would be fruitful, like Linda said, for other community projects. We may want to consider setting a public hearing once all the information is obtained, and then letting the public know, look at the board is being presented with options 1, 2, and 3. We are considering to vote 1, 2, and 3, whatever those options are, and would like to hear from the public. What are your thoughts? That's when we would welcome, you along with everybody else. What are your ideas, suggestions, recommendations? You can share agitation, disgust, whatever you want, right? And then we take
Right.
it back again after hearing the public feedback. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be yelling. I just sound
No,
super
you're
loud
not
with
yelling.
the mic.
But I don't mean to cut you off, but, you guys have to do something for us to get to that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and-
it just, we don't have to go around and around. I think we all understand each other. If I can be of assistance, call me. What can I say? You know? I
So why
do
don't
30 million a year in construction, and, you know, we're talking about a house and a barn. I would be fired in about 3 seconds if I ever had this conversation with my boss. Were you gonna say something?
I was going to say you could give me your phone number so that they.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could give you your information.
Well, that's,
We do appreciate, thank you for your, thank you. Seeing no one,
Thank you for
Yeah.
really taking the time, really
do
a long,
appreciate it.
long time tonight to voice your feedback and thoughts, as well as members that called in, and for the hours for coming tonight.
does Kathy Canower, did you want to come back up, Kathy? Yep, have a seat.
Second timer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Okay, very
after
good.
multiple
I
attempts.
just wanted to say something for clarification, because she'd mentioned, what do we have, 5 historic houses? We have over 20 designated
Yes.
properties in 3 historic preservation districts. The largest one runs from just north of Wayland Road along 5 Mile Line down to the Perrington Town Line. So we have quite a few designated properties.
Some beautiful properties, too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy, for clarifying that. Appreciate that. Seeing no one else for public, any other for public participation. So we have no executive session tonight. Our next legislative meeting will be here, right here on January 18th at 6:30. And on a personal note, I just wanted to let you know that I have assumed some of the day-to-day responsibilities of the supervisor. Well, Supervisor Cindy is on leave. And I just wanted to take this time to personally thank the Penfield Town staff. Many of them are here tonight. We have our Director of Developmental Services, Carrie Ivers, here tonight. Our Director of Building, Fire Marshal, and Zoning and Code, Heidi Boyle, is over there at the door. And I also see Dave Renner here, our Director of PCTV. Thank you. And you can be assured, I think, I know, knowing that the residents of the town, this is a very well-run town with knowledgeable and caring people. So thank you tonight to PCTV, to our security here tonight, to Lisa Grosser, who's instrumental in organizing this meeting, and also our town clerk, Amy Steckloff. So I'd like to adjourn this meeting at 8:14. And please be kind, be safe, and have a great night. Thank you so.